The evening sun hung low over the open land and painted the sky in soft orange light as Tom walked slowly back toward his small cabin. He had spent the whole day riding fences and checking cattle, and his body felt heavy with tiredness. The land around him was wide and quiet, and only the sound of wind moving through dry grass kept him company. Tom had lived this way for many years and had grown used to the silence that followed him wherever he went. Tom placed his saddle inside the shed and picked up a small metal plate from the table near the door. On it were a few leftover pieces of meat from his dinner. He did not waste food because life on the ranch had taught him respect for every small thing. As he stepped onto the porch, he noticed that the air felt different than usual, as if the land itself was watching. He stopped moving and listened carefully. The usual sounds of night had faded, and even the insects seemed quiet. Tom's eyes moved slowly across the field until they settled on a small shape near the fence line. It was crouched low and barely moving, as if it feared being seen. Tom narrowed his eyes and took a careful step forward. At first he thought it was a sick dog that had wandered too far from town. The animal looked thin and weak, and its fur was dusty and rough. It did not bark or run away when Tom moved closer. Instead it stayed still and watched him with wide eyes filled with fear and hunger. Tom felt something twist inside his chest. As the distance between them closed, Tom realized the truth. This was not a dog at all. It was a baby wolf. It was far too small to survive alone and far too weak to be dangerous. The pup's legs shook as it tried to stand, and its body looked like it had not eaten properly in days. Tom had heard stories all his life about wolves. People feared them and blamed them for lost animals and hard times. Ranchers did not show kindness to wolves. Yet this one looked like it was barely holding on to life. Tom knelt down slowly and rested the plate on the ground beside him. The wolf pup let out a soft sound that was closer to a cry than a growl. It took one careful step forward and then another. Its eyes never left Tom's face. There was no anger in them, only a deep need and a quiet request. Tom pushed a piece of meat toward the pup using the edge of the plate. The pup rushed forward and ate quickly as if afraid the food would disappear. Tom stayed still and watched. He noticed a small scar on the pup's side and signs that it had traveled a long way alone. The thought of such a small creature surviving the wild by itself made Tom feel uneasy. When the food was gone, the pup lifted its head and looked straight at Tom. Their eyes met and something unexpected happened. Tom felt warmth spread through his chest and memories from long ago rose to the surface. He remembered being a young boy who had once felt just as lost and hungry in the world. The wind picked up gently and moved around them as if wrapping both man and animal in the same breath. The wolf pup did not run away. Instead it sat down and waited. Tom felt his heart beat slower as he realized the pup trusted him. He reached out his hand slowly and stopped just short of touching the pup. The wolf did not pull back. It leaned slightly forward and sniffed his fingers. Its breath was warm and shaky. Tom smiled without realizing it. He felt like this moment was important even if he could not explain why. Tom thought about the land and the long nights ahead. He knew winter would be hard and survival would be even harder for such a small creature. Leaving the pup alone felt wrong. Yet helping it could bring trouble. Tom stayed quiet and listened to his own thoughts. The sky darkened and the first stars began to appear. Tom stood up slowly and stepped back toward the cabin. The wolf pup watched him carefully but did not flee. Tom opened the door and looked back over his shoulder. The pup was still there. He went inside and returned with a small bowl of water. He placed it near the fence and stepped away. The pup approached and drank slowly. Each movement showed caution but also relief. Tom felt a sense of peace settle over him. As the night grew colder, Tom realized this was not just a random meeting. Something had guided the pup to his doorstep. Something had guided him to notice it instead of turning away. The land felt alive around them and the silence no longer felt empty. Tom leaned against the porch railing and watched the pup curl up near the fence. It was still afraid, but it was no longer alone. Tom did not know what would happen next or how this choice would change his life. All he knew was that when he looked into those eyes, he saw more than an animal. He saw hope. He saw trust. And without knowing it, yet Tom had taken the first step toward a miracle that would reshape both their lives forever. Morning light slowly spread across the land and touched the wooden cabin with a soft glow as Tom stepped outside. The cold air filled his lungs and reminded him of the long day ahead. He glanced toward the fence and felt relief when he saw the small wolf pup still curled near the post. The pup lifted its head and watched Tom quietly without fear. Tom moved carefully and kept his distance as he poured water into a bowl. The pup rose on shaky legs and approached slowly. Hunger still showed in its movements, but there was less panic than before. Tom noticed how the pup stayed alert yet calm, as if it had decided this place was safe for now. He left more food on the ground and stepped away. The pup ate slower this time and paused often to look up at Tom. Trust was growing little by little. Tom felt something change inside him. He had always lived by rules passed down through generations, but this moment felt different. Tom spent the morning working near the cabin so he could keep an eye on the pup. He fixed a loose board on the fence and checked tools in the shed. The pup followed him from a distance and stopped whenever Tom stopped. It did not try to get too close, yet it refused to leave. As the sun climbed higher, Tom noticed dark clouds gathering far away. Weather in these lands could turn harsh without warning. He looked at the pup and wondered how it had survived alone for so long. The thought of cold nights and wild dangers made his chest tighten. Tom decided to create a small shelter near the cabin. He gathered old wood and spare cloth and built a simple cover near the fence. The pup watched every move with careful eyes. When Tom finished, he stepped back and waited. After a moment, the pup approached and crawled inside the shelter. That small act felt like a promise. Tom smiled quietly and sat on the porch. He remembered his own past and how kindness had once saved him when he had nowhere to go. He realized that the land did not always reward strength alone, but also patience and care. Later that day, Tom rode into town to gather supplies. He hesitated before leaving, but the pup stayed near the shelter and did not follow. In town, people spoke about missing livestock and whispered fears about wolves nearby. Tom listened, but said nothing. When he returned, the sky had darkened and the wind had grown sharp. He felt a strange worry push him to hurry. As he approached the cabin, he saw the pup standing at the fence waiting. Relief washed over him, and he felt a bond forming that words could not explain. That night, the storm arrived. Rain poured hard and the wind howled across the plains. Tom stayed awake listening to the noise and thinking about the small life outside. When thunder shook the cabin, he stepped out into the storm without hesitation. The pup had left the shelter and stood shaking near the porch. Tom moved slowly and knelt down. For the first time, he gently placed his hand near the pup's side. The pup did not run. It leaned closer, seeking warmth. Tom guided the pup into the shelter and blocked the wind with his body until the storm passed. Rain soaked his clothes, but he did not move. In that moment, he felt a deep connection, as if the land itself approved of this bond. By morning, the storm had cleared and the sky was bright. The pup rested peacefully and its breathing was steady. Tom felt tired but content. He knew this was no longer just about leftovers or chance. Over the next days, the pup grew stronger. Its eyes became brighter and its steps more confident. Tom began to speak to it softly, using a simple name he chose without thought. He called it Ash because of its gray fur and quiet strength. Ash responded to the sound of Tom's voice and followed him closely. It learned the rhythms of the ranch and watched cattle from a distance without fear or hunger. Tom made sure Ash ate well and stayed safe. One evening, Tom noticed something strange. When Ash looked at him, there was understanding beyond instinct. It felt as if the pup sensed Tom's thoughts and worries. The land around them seemed calmer and more alive when they stood together. Tom did not yet know what this bond meant. He only knew that helping Ash had changed something deep inside him. What started as a simple act of kindness was becoming something greater. And as the stars filled the sky once more, Tom felt certain that this journey was only beginning and that the true miracle had not yet revealed itself. Days turned into weeks and the bond between Tom and Ash grew stronger with every sunrise. Ash was no longer weak or trembling and now moved with confidence across the land. Its fur had grown thicker and cleaner, and its eyes held a calm intelligence that often surprised Tom. The ranch felt less empty now, and the silence that once weighed on Tom had softened. Tom continued his daily work, and Ash followed from a respectful distance. The pup learned the paths around the ranch and understood the sounds of the land. When cattle moved, Ash stayed back without fear or aggression. It was as if Ash knew the rules without being taught. One morning Tom noticed something unusual. A wounded deer had wandered near the far fence and collapsed from exhaustion. Tom prepared himself for a difficult moment, knowing the wild rules of survival. Yet Ash did not rush forward. Instead it stood still and watched quietly. Ash stepped closer to the deer and lowered its head gently. It did not attack or frighten the animal. The deer slowly stood and moved away. Tom felt a deep sense of wonder. Ash was showing mercy and awareness beyond instinct. That night Tom sat on the porch and thought deeply. He realized Ash was not just surviving but understanding the world in a different way. The land around them felt balanced and calm, as if nature itself had accepted Ash's presence. Soon strange things began to happen. When storms formed far away, Ash would alert Tom before the clouds even appeared. When cattle grew restless, Ash sensed danger before Tom could see it. Each time Ash was right. People in town began to notice changes too. Lost animals returned safely. Crops grew stronger despite harsh weather. Some spoke of luck, while others whispered about something unseen watching over the land. Tom remained quiet and focused on his work. He did not seek attention or praise. He only trusted what he felt in his heart. Ash stayed close and watched Tom with steady eyes full of trust. One evening, a group of strangers rode near the ranch. Their presence felt wrong and the land grew tense. Ash stood alert and placed itself between Tom and the riders. The strangers looked uneasy and left without explanation. Tom realized then that Ash was protecting him not through force but through presence. There was power in calm and understanding. Ash carried something rare and ancient within. As the moon rose high, Tom felt a deep warmth in his chest. He understood that the miracle was not about magic or legend, but about connection. Ash had chosen him, and through that choice both had changed. Tom whispered thanks to the quiet land and rested his hand near Ash. The pup leaned close and watched the stars. Together they stood strong and ready for whatever the future would bring. And deep within the stillness, Tom knew the greatest miracle was not yet finished, and the land had many more stories to tell. The change in the land became clearer as the seasons shifted, and Tom could feel it in every step he took across the ranch. The wind felt gentler, and the nights felt warmer even when cold should have ruled. Ash had grown into a strong young wolf, and moved with quiet confidence beside Tom. There was no fear between them now, only understanding. One early morning Tom woke before sunrise and sensed something was different. Ash stood at the edge of the porch staring toward the hills with focused calm. Tom followed Ash's gaze and felt a pull in his chest, as if the land itself was calling. Without thinking, he saddled his horse and followed Ash across the open field. They reached a high ridge where the earth dipped into a wide valley below. In the soft morning light, Tom saw movement across the grass. A small wolf pack stood together, watching from a distance. Ash stopped and did not move forward. The pack did not show threat or fear. They simply watched. Tom understood then. Ash had never been truly alone. The bond Ash shared with the land had guided the pack back. Ash turned its head and looked at Tom, and in that look was gratitude and peace. There was no sadness, only balance. The pack slowly moved closer and stopped a short distance away. Ash stepped forward, and the others welcomed it without sound. Tom felt his heart tighten, but not from loss. He felt pride. He knew this moment was meant to happen. Ash returned to Tom one last time, and pressed its head gently against his side. The touch carried warmth and comfort, and a promise that words could not hold. Then Ash turned and joined the pack as they moved toward the hills. Tom stayed where he was and watched until they disappeared into the morning mist. The land felt still and full. He did not feel empty. He felt complete. In the days that followed, the ranch continued to thrive. The cattle stayed calm and healthy. Storms passed without damage. Neighbors noticed and spoke with respect instead of fear. Tom never claimed credit. He simply lived with gratitude. At night Tom would sit on the porch and listen to the wind. Sometimes he thought he heard a distant howl carried softly across the land. It never sounded lonely. It sounded strong and sure. Tom understood the true miracle had never been about keeping Ash close. It had been about giving and trusting and letting go. Through kindness he had healed more than one small life. He had healed the land and himself. The seasons continued and the ranch stood strong. Tom remained a quiet man with a steady heart and a story written into the soil beneath his boots. And somewhere beyond the hills Ash ran free, carrying the same bond into the wild.